afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to August's Creation in Crisis with Deirdre Combs and ably assisted by Bob Eisenberger, our and scientist extraordinaire, and Gail Ransom, co-host. And now I'd like to turn it over.
Okay, thank you, Penny. What a day. Things, the atmosphere, things are going on. Wow. So we'll just persevere, and because that's what we can do. I'd like to introduce Deidre Combs has so much to give to us and is so ready to offer what she has to give to us that we're starting right out with some of the activities and inspirations that she has, and then we'll have a chance, of course, later on in our time together to ask her questions and have some conversations. But she has been teaching practical cross-cultural approaches for resolving conflict in universities and businesses for over 25 years. And since 2007, Deidre has provided intensive leadership development training to more than 1,500 State Department, Muskie Foundation, and Carnegie-selected teachers, students, activists, and business professionals from dozens of countries around the world. Now, that still doesn't say how big her influence is, because she works with young people in very tough situations who are learning how to work for the betterment of their community by learning these skills about dealing with conflict, and they come to learn from her when over in Bozeman. Then so she's quite a mentor for a whole generation of young leaders. She previously taught in both Master's in Divinity and Doctor of Ministry programs to share how we can find the gift in discord and lead well through change. Deidre is a member of the Creation Spirituality Community's Board of Directors, and that is the organization that sponsors these webinars. And she lives with her husband in the Rocky Mountain West and loves to ski, hike, and explore the backcountry. And to prepare us a little bit more for her presentation, these are her 3 books: Thriving Through Tough Times, The Way of Conflict, and Worst Enemy, Best Teacher. So, Deidre, thank you so much for coming and giving us this time together to help us get better at being strong about what we believe in.
Oh, Gail, it's just such a joy to be with all of you. I mean, I remember going to the University of Creation Spirituality way back in 1998, and one of my first classes, I was in class with Penny, and I found my tribe, I found my community, and it's been that way ever since. So I drop into this community and I just feel like I've come home. So thank you. And so glad to be with all of you again and be with Gail. Gail and I had this awesome opportunity. We got to teach together in Pittsburgh way back when, and it was just incredible. So anyway, I'm just happy to be with you all and to spend some time talking about how we might find the opportunity in all of this material that we're getting to work with in these crazy times. But to center and to ready us, I wanted to start with a song from Mary, I think it's Gautier, and it's called Mercy Now. So I'm going to bring that up just to give everybody a little bit of time to be here and get ready to engage in resolving conflict.
Well, my father sure could use a little mercy now. The fruits of his labor falling right slowly on the ground. is almost over. Won't be long, he won't be around. I love my father. He could use some mercy now. And my brother, he could use a little mercy now. He's a stranger to freedom, shackled to fear and doubt. The pain that he lives in, it's almost more than living will allow. I love my brother. He could use some mercy now. My church and my country, they could use a little mercy now. As they sink into a poison pit, it's gonna take forever to climb out. They carry the weight of the faithful who follow them down. I love my church and country. They could use some mercy now. Every living thing could use a little mercy now. Only the hand of grace can end the race towards another mushroom cloud. There's people in power who'll do anything to keep their crown. I love life and life itself could use some mercy now. Yeah, we all could use a little mercy now. I know we don't deserve it, but we need it anyhow. We hang in the balance, we dangle between hell and hallowed ground. And every single one of us could use some mercy now. Every single one of us could use some mercy now.
Such a wonderful song. All right, and share, there we go. So how do we hold mercy, especially when we're dealing with all of the different issues that she was bringing up that we are dealing with as human beings right now. And she does that, Mary does that so artfully. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is how are we in that state? Meanwhile, as challenges come our way, we are just absolutely set up to go to a place of fear. Our brains are wired to do that. And yet mercy and connection and creative problem solving is done within our neocortex and our prefrontal lobes, where fear is lodged beautifully, artfully in our evolved brains, in our reptilian brain. And unfortunately, not much mercy shows up in that reptilian brain. I wanted to see, I'm going to go to some slides, and we will dive in here. So conflict. You are creation change agents. That is the intention of this group, and that I am honored to be with you and to support you in whatever way I can. And meanwhile, it's you're taking on holding, meditating upon, and helping us to find progress around one of the most compelling conflicts of our species, and at least of our times. And meanwhile, to lead well is to share a compelling vision that fosters positive change. And that's what I hear here. That's what I hear from our beloved Reverend Matthew Fox and all of those who are bringing creation spirituality and creation-centered vision into the world. But meanwhile, when we bring forward a compelling vision and call to foster change, we create conflict. And that's the rub of it, isn't it? It's like, wait, I've got this great vision. Don't you all want to come with me? And many people will. But for some, the way things are still works, or they're afraid that they're going to lose something that they hold on to very tightly, that they are attached to. So conflict skills, when we're working to be change agents, are absolutely key tools in a leader's toolbox. And we want to be able to not only take forward our vision, but bring the people with us. Because if I've got more people on my team, I've got more resources, and I've got a larger perspective that is going to create a more lasting solution. So that's what we're trying to do as change agents. You are all leaders. That you are on this call, you want to help, which to me is the ultimate definition of leadership. Margaret Wheatley, who is a leadership researcher, has come to her definition, which I hold very dearly, which is a leader is anyone who wants to help at this time. That's what I do. As Gail and Penny were sharing, I work with the State Department. I've been hired to take groups like this, rising young leaders from 87 different countries that come to the US usually in non-pandemic times. And they do a 1 month to 4 month leadership fellowship. And I get to be their executive coach and leadership development trainer. And they inspire me. So often it is, let me just say, it can be easy to lose hope. Meanwhile, one of the stars in our sky, Joanna Macy, talks to us about having active hope. But I get to hang out with people who are saving rainforests in Cambodia and working on LGBT rights in Bolivia and Uganda, and bringing women's empowerment to rural Kenya. And I am filled with active hope as a result of these folks. And I can tell you more about these programs if you want, but that's the context that I get to live in, and I feel incredibly blessed. This is trying to share, this is the work that I try to share with them, the body of work, so that they can go and lead effectively, but also compassionately. They come forward with mercy. but meanwhile, it can be hard. And here's why. So if I asked you, and you can maybe put it in the chat or just even yell out words, what do you think of when I say the word conflict? What words come up for you?
Tension is one.
Tension. Excellent, Bob. Yeah. What else when I say the word conflict? Oh.
Anger.
Anger. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Disharmony, Carol says. That's great.
Roadblock.
Yeah. Carte blanche.
I think of love.
Love. Okay.
Everybody loves something different.
Yeah, that we hold on to. We love it. We love it so much. We don't want to lose it. Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Gail. When I'm asking this of a group like I just showed you, I will hear war. I will hear discord, depending on what country I've come from, you know, that risky, scary, dangerous. You know, all of these different words are, you know, come with conflict, people fighting. So, you know, I've been the conflict lady for the last 20 years. People always are like, why do you study that stuff? That's just awful. But what I've noticed is it is messy and risky and scary. And it is not a surprise to me that sometimes we won't get as big of a group who wants to come and hear about this, because conflict causes us stress. But it is absolutely necessary. Without conflict, we do not change. We do not get better. We do not go to our growing edges. We do not evolve because it works. You notice over the last 18 months, the breakthroughs that we've had, just as Gail was sharing about teaching body prayer and, you know, doing worship on Zoom, you know, what we have learned and the technological breakthroughs, but also our breakthroughs around connecting with people. So we need disruption. It is always has opportunity. Every change, every conflict has hidden opportunity. One of my mentors that is very dear to me, Angela Sarian, who is a cultural anthropologist, she would always say, conflict is a call to creativity. Conflict is a call to creativity. And so how can we hold all of this at the exact same time of knowing it's messy, risky, and scary? And when people are in a place of fear, they're not at their best. You know, that just as we heard in the song Mercy Now, just how trapped we can become when we're in a place of fear. So this is our work. We have 4 different types of conflict that are working us and helping us to grow. We have internal conflict, you know, should I keep this job or should I get rid of it? Should I stay in this relationship? Should I leave it? You know, should I be brave and try this new thing or just keep going the same way? We have the what most people think of, or we might naturally think of when it comes to conflict, is fighting with somebody else, interpersonal conflict. But we also have conflict with systems and structures. So university systems or our city or our state, you know, it keeps us on our toes. So, you know, and each of these, we can use the same skill set with some modifications to move forward, to evolve, to become even better. We also have the conflicts where we're yelling at the sky going, really? Are you kidding me? You know, we're just, I used to say when my children were teenagers, and it's like, you know, you love them and then you raise them, and then like the way this works is then they go out in the world and you know, your heart, the part of your heart goes outside of your body and can drive. You know, so, you know, just there's ones we can laugh at, and some that we're just like, this is not fair, that we're just like Job going, you've got to be kidding me. So we have 4 different types of conflict. The great news is there's a wealth of skills that come from around the world. My work, luckily at the University of Creation Spirituality, was for my dissertation was to look at traditions around the world and say, what does everybody say that's the same around how to deal with difficult people, deal with difficult situations. So I like to say that I went looking for the ubiquitous or perennial wisdom of a grandmother, be it in Bangkok, Bangladesh, or Boston, and have been richly rewarded. So that's why those 3 books. And, you know, if you want more than what you hear today, that's why they've been written, is just to be able to share just how much is already out there to help us to deal with these different types of conflict. And we have a huge conflict right now, this is what you all are working with, how we as human beings create a sustainable way of living on this planet, how we stick around. I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Tim DeChristopher, who is an environmental activist and Unitarian minister. And he is just absolutely incredible. He's bitter. I think it's bitter 89 or something, but just type in bitter and Tim DeChristopher and you'll learn about his incredible activist work. He went into, as a university student, went into a bid for mineral mining rights in Utah, and incredible story about how he was buying up all these mining rights as a university student until he was charged with a felony for doing it. So talking about engaging from an environmental activist standpoint. But they say, well, Tim, why do you do this? And you must love the earth so much. And he says, it's not the earth that I love, it's the people. So how do we help our species stick around? And I know that that's what you're working on. Big conflict. 1, we are not alone. And 2, how can we look at this big conflict that we're all engaging in and you all are engaging in as a call to creativity? So one of the ways is how to get ourselves out of our place of fear where we're not creative into a place of creativity. And it is this first tip, I found this all around the world, was if you see a conflict as an opportunity, if you can see the positive or find gratitude. I like to say, if you don't remember anything else from me, is 2 things. One is that when conflict comes is to be grateful, because you cannot process gratitude in your reptilian brain. You can only process it in your neocortex and your prefrontal lobes. So it gets you into the right place where you can be creative. So see your opponents as teachers. Worst enemy, best teacher. I love that when you get on a martial arts mat, what is done is to bow in appreciation to this person who might want to hurt or destroy you. But it's the only opportunity that we have to learn. So seeing that our opponents can make our final solutions even stronger. These people that you listen to that song at the beginning of this call, and if we can hold those others, recognizing that they can be opponents, but at the same time, as if we can listen and understand. If you remember the second thing, which is to always ask, tell me more. Tell me more. And the more that we can learn, the better that we can create a solution that incorporates their fears and their wants into a greater solution where our wants and our concerns are cared for. So we're really looking, and most of this conflict resolution strategies that I found are hacks. They're brain hacks to get us into our neocortex so we engage and we stay out of fear. You see behind me, I have a painting that was given to me by my husband of a raven. and bringing up Angelus Arian. That was really her totem. That was her animal. And why she would speak of it so often was that there is a legend and I wish I could tell you which Native American tradition it was, but that in the Native American tradition is that when you are afraid, you ask Raven to take on her iridescent wings, your fears, take them up to the sun so that they're burned away. Because meanwhile, I'm a person who gets scared easily. And so this is this constant work of how do we practice moral courage? How do we stay in? How do we find ways to see these conflicts we're dealing with as a call to creativity and be able to ask, tell me more, from a compassionate place. So tip number one is when conflict comes, be grateful and looking for that opportunity. Back to you, as I was saying, to your brain. In the center of your brain is your amygdala. So it's being kind to ourselves. We are wired to go to fear. We are wired to go to fight, flight. It's just the way it works. Bummer. But yet it keeps us away from tigers and bears and, truly dangerous situations. The amygdala that lives it's just like this small little organ. It is always looking, it's looking for fear, things that we are dangerous. And the amygdala says, oh, what's that in the corner? Ooh, it could be a snake. It sends cues back to our reptilian brain, which says fight, flight, or freeze to put us in the survival brain. That's where we go first. So then the trick is, meanwhile, we are human beings who have the ability to think into the future. We can think in the past, present, and future, really handy. We can think of people beyond ourselves. Reptilian brain only thinks about me. You know this when you get scared and you're in a conversation and 20 minutes later, I don't know, I'm guessing you do what I do, which is going, I can't believe I just said that. I'm really regretting that. So we really don't want to be in our reptilian brains. If it's not a super dangerous situation, we want to be in our neocortex. So gratitude takes us up there. Play also and creativity take us up there. So another trick is to see conflict as a game. And again, as a martial artist, this sense of this is a learning opportunity. We go to our top of our brain. What can I learn here? Instead of this is so terrible, this is so terrible. Could be really scary and terrible. But if I start to get myself thinking from a place of what can I learn? And how can I play this game well? Or and again, learning mode, telling me more. It keeps me and others more in the game. From a leadership perspective, this is how do I, like the Shambhala warriors, which is pre-Tibetan Buddhist tradition out of Tibet, is to have a brain that is so sharp and ready that I am paying attention to absolutely everything, but a heart so open that I could feel a mosquito land on it. This is that magic place. Another way to think of this is we have, when we're being everyday warriors, which is what we're talking about here, and it's what I talk about in the Worst Enemy, Best Teacher. I studied the martial arts traditions from around the world, looking at the warrior traditions as well, and said, how did what does a noble warrior look like, from a perennial wisdom standpoint? And it is the sense of how to have heart and head alignment so that both are involved. But meanwhile, we've got to work with fear. We're wired to do that. So I pass along this wonderful model from a consultant named Doug Lennox, who really works on moral intelligence. He's all about ethical leadership because we want to fight well. What does it mean to be an everyday everyday warrior or martial artist is that you're actually engaging and that you're fighting, but you're fighting well and fighting creatively and seeing this as this life that we're in as a game in a wonderful way. But we have our ideal self. You know, you've got your principles and your values and the way that you want to engage. And then we have our real self, right? The things that we actually end up doing, the feelings we have, the thoughts that we have. And we want to try to be in a place of alignment where our ideal self and our real self are coming forward. Again, this is the walk of the everyday warrior. So one is to have a code of conduct. If we were spending more time together, we would be working on that. That's one of the first things when I'm working with these young rising leaders is that they develop their own personal code of conduct. No more than 5 to 7 values that they memorize and maybe even create a symbol to go with it. We work on having a clarity around our personal vision. What do we want to bring into the world? And these are things that help center us and engage our neocortex, our code of conduct, our vision, clear goals, and more than anything is to be good trackers. So tracking, how am I actually doing today? What thoughts are arising? What am I feeling? And again, doing this from a compassionate standpoint, because this is big work and hard work, but it's also incredibly wonderful. Because if you are taking us, this creation and crisis vision that you had for us, there we go, is taking us even a tiny bit closer to the vision that you have, how much better this world is going to be. And so we don't have to get it all done in our lifetime. Miles Horton, who was the founder of the Highland Folk School. Many of you might remember, this is where Rosa Parks was trained as a civil rights activist. Martin Luther King was a dear friend of Miles Horton. But Miles Horton said, if your vision can be accomplished in your lifetime, it's too small. So that you all are holding a healthy and vibrant planet in a way that sustains, that human beings can live here in a sustainable way. You take us even a tiny bit closer to that in your lifetimes, we're doing well. So these are the things that center frame can support us as well. So that's another tip, is to notice, what is my ideal self? How's my real self doing? And how do I have these things almost as you could think of them as your shield, and is that bright light that you're carrying forth as your vision, the goals that ground you into your actions, and that clear eye that tells us where we're going next. I wanted to bring Joanna Macy in because we love her so. You know, if you haven't read her book, Act of Hope, I highly recommend it. It's one that I've used teaching environmental leadership, and it helps me to recenter how to stay with what is and at the same time hold what could be. And she said, if the world is to be healed through human efforts, I'm convinced it will be by ordinary people. People whose love for this life is even greater than their fear. So her acknowledgement that that's what we're all working with. Of course, we get afraid and overwhelmed, but if we can use our love as an alignment and the vision within it, amazing things happen as a result. So how do we do this practically? You can tell I love the philosophy, but there's a real practical side to this every day. How can we show up and keep on going? And one of the things that I try to remember, I have, kind of my tools, my toolbox, because when I get afraid, my brain is not working as well. So first I've got to be grateful. If I can't think of anything else to say, I ask someone to tell me more why they think I'm such a terrible person, or why this won't work, or, just to buy myself some time to recenter and to gather information. But there's 4 conflict transformers that I wanted us to play with here. Look at my time a little bit together during this call. And these are these just, again, to have 4 things that when conflict comes in any of those 4 different forms, what can I use to move forward? So first is to ask open-ended questions. And we'll talk about that here in a minute, but an open-ended question, as you probably all know, means a question that can't be answered with a yes or a no. One of my favorite questions to ask, and always makes me giggle at myself because I teach this all the time, but I always want to ask, like, did you love the class? So not an open-ended question, but, so there it is, right? A statement in disguise. So we want to be able to ask open-ended questions. And again, you can tell my tell me more is an open-ended question of sorts. We want to practice being approachable. We can use self-deprecating humor and humility. And that helps to connect into the heart, make people feel calmer, because really what you're trying to do is bring people along with you. And this is the constant work for us, is to say, how do I keep myself in this game and engage? And how do I bring others in so that they feel safe enough to get them out of the reptilian brains so that we can move forward? We'll talk as well about triple acknowledgement. There is especially a certain personality type that really, really, really values, and I'm kind of modeling that personality type that super, super values being seen and knowing that you're hearing what they have to say. You don't have to agree with it, but being able to acknowledge it will bring them to your side. And then fourth is to share your own truth from a place of I. So we'll talk about that. All right. So these 4 transformers are actually connected to four particular personality types that they will especially appreciate it. I just wanted to bring this up. In the way of conflict, if you're interested, there is a elemental conflict styles assessment, because something that I'm always watching, again, to make conflict a game for myself, is how are people showing up? Some people really trust their senses, and cross-culturally that is connected to the element of earth. I don't know if you ever remember reading Memoirs of a Geisha, and they talked about her being watery. This shows up, this connection to the elements shows up all around the world. But so earth, people who connect very much with the element of earth, they trust the earth of them. They trust what they can feel and see and taste and hear. And they love if you ask what they're observing, and that will bring them more to your side. Others of us are connected to our emotions. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, yay. I'm just like, I saw there's a little chat. Thanks, Carol. Others are connected to their emotions. And that around the world is connected to the element of water, right? Still waters run deep. We flow, we're flexible. And if you can be gentle and flexible, and we usually don't like much conflict, we will flow to your side. So being approachable with that self-deprecating humor and humility really connects. If you notice someone's feelings are hurt, or they're struggling emotionally, or they've been offended, your ability to use that self-deprecating humor and humility can make all the difference. Those of us who get fiery and excited when conflict comes, like in the movie Michael, if you remember John Travolta saying, battle, he modeled that, like, yay, I'm going to go into conflict. And if I'm really fiery, I want you to see my fire. And I really appreciate this connection to you seeing my fire and sharing that you've seen it. And if I'm trying to solve problems and I use my head and I trust my head, So fire trusts the heart, that beautiful spark within us. But those who you go, there's a problem, we're going to figure this out. We're going to come up with conceptual frameworks. They really value you providing your perspective so that they can get better sense of the information that's around them so they can solve the problem. So they love it if you share your truth, and they really would appreciate if you share it really fast. So that's something else to notice, is a way to gamify conflict, is to be paying attention to when you're working with a group. Groups as well, by the way, will have an elemental personality. Super fascinating to watch. And as a longtime corporate consultant and nonprofit consultant, I come in and to a new group. And one of the things I do, again, working with my own nervousness and fear, is to watch what's the elemental style of this group. Do they all show up late and they're really bouncy and they're zipping all around? I'm usually, they're a fiery group. They're very creative. They need me to come in with that same energy and model that I'm seeing what they're passionate about. I live here in Bozeman, Montana, and my husband is from a small town nearby, which is what brought us back here 30 years ago. And you would go over to this little town called Ennis, and people talk really slow. And they look at the sky. And they pay attention. Earth. They really appreciate if you ask, what'd you notice with the calving season this year? I was raised in downtown Minneapolis, different energy, much more watery, as you can imagine, Minnesota nice. And, so learning the rhythms and the patterns of a person and a group will support you as you come in and try to help and transform it. So that's something else, especially if you're working within your town to move things forward, to get in new legislation or new policies, and to make our communities more sustainable. What is the elemental personality of your community or of that city commissioner you're working with? And how do you keep bringing them along? So lots to play with there. But, okay, good. We still have time. A conflict with time. So number one, going back. So again, I wanted to give you some practical tips that you can use as you go through your day, is how to ask questions. I recommend avoiding the word why. When I was trained as a mediator 26 years ago, that was one of the first things that they taught us as mediators, is please don't use the word why. Because, and you notice if we say, why did you do that? It has a sense of blame, judgment, and it really calls someone to make up a story. So you want to, as you craft your questions to bring people along with you, is to use, just to stay away from the word why. So how did we get here would be an example. Always watching for those rhetorical questions, like I was saying earlier. What do you wish we had done differently? How did we get here? What should we do now? What am I missing? That's my guiding question in ethical leadership when I'm teaching is, what am I missing? Because goodness knows I'm always missing something. We have so many things that we can't see in ourselves and other people see with us, and getting that feedback can be critical. What am I missing? What would you like? What should we do now? So I want to engage you here. I've been talking. What might be a favorite question that you would use when conflict comes, or you're trying to move folks forward using a classic adult learning technique? How would you integrate this? You can either share it by turning on your microphone, or you can share it in the chat box. What might be a good go-to question that you like to hold?
Well, my first, I don't know, it isn't a question. I guess it's a question to me. Okay, so it's a question to yourself.
Yeah. Or
Why did, there's something here that we all care about. Like there may be different answers, but there's some place where you meet. There's some place down here that it's all about this. And if we can get ourselves closer to there, then we have a starting point to go forward again. In a different direction, I guess.
Yeah.
This way, maybe this way.
Yeah. So what do we care? What do we care about? What do we all care about? Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. What am I noticing is our common point of care? I love it. Others? Thank you, Gail. That's awesome.
Rollo says in the chat, noticing feelings. Paying attention to the feelings.
Yeah. So what? Yeah. So a question might be, how are you? What's coming up for you, right? And how to tap into that heart, into those emotions. Thank you, Rollo. That's great.
I'm not sure it's my beginning question, but I want to know where we want to go. I mean, where are people headed? Where are the goals of where they want to go?
Love it. That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. What's our vision? What's our hopes? That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I recommend having these kind of, it's like to keep them in your pocket. Because when we get scared, or I'll just say, when I get scared and conflict comes and I can tell someone's nerve, you know, it's like half my brain shuts down because I'm in my reptilian brain. So having those kind of questions, what's our vision here? What do we all care about? Yeah, how do we get here? What am I missing? When I went whitewater rafting once, one of the instructors before we went on the whitewater raft would say, on the rafting trip, he kept saying, nose to knees, nose to knees. And I was like, oh, okay, enough already with the nose to knees. But what I realized is when we were on this like spring runoff and we're madly going down and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I could fall in this water, I realized he said nose to knees so many times that I could not think of it. So that I knew if I did fall out of the boat, I would put my nose to my knees. So having these things in your, you know, okay, here comes conflict. I got to be grateful. I got to be grateful, be grateful, be grateful. You know, and having these questions is another trick. Anybody else have any others that have been helpful for you or that you might want to add? All right, well, keep thinking on it. Share them with us if you would. I'm using a lot of adult learning techniques with you. One of the ways to really support our learning is to ask questions like this to help integrate it. Right, oh, I love that. What's going on between us right now? Wonderful. Oh my gosh, that's so great. And what I'm appreciating about that, Rolla, is that it creates space. So if someone doesn't want to talk about feelings, but even though what you're doing is bringing that out, that just, for me, just feels like a gentle way to bring people in to sharing what they're noticing. So you're going to get all those different radio stations, that practical, the emotional, that energetic, fiery, or that conceptual. air. So, ooh, I love that. I want to eat. I love that. What's going on between us right now? Oh, yeah. Okay. So, number one, ask questions. Number two, how can we model this practice of humility? When I am in a watery place, when I'm feeling like my feelings have been hurt, or I'm just, like the sixth grade girl inside of me that's still very there always. We all have her. It's really nice when I can center in and remember. I always appreciate when others are doing this for me. And when I see others that are in this place, is this reminder that we're all walking the same path, that we're all trying to figure out how to conduct ourselves on this planet. That we're born and we're trying to figure it out, the crazy game. And that, like I love to say, unless you figured out something you haven't told us yet, we're all not gonna be here someday. And so that we're all very much the same. Humility comes from the word humus, or earth, that we're all here. Humility is that we're all equal. To bring someone to your side, if you see that they're in that watery space, stories really help. When have you been in the same spot? I watched this very masterful mediator once who had been through 3 divorces, and he was an amazing divorce mediator. And I got to mirror shadow him and watch him at work. And there's these magic moments when he would just have a particular story that let everybody know, hey, I'm not going, oh, you silly little poor people who are getting a divorce. He was just like, when it comes to this point, he could let them know he was walking with them on this journey, this difficult journey. And everything changed, everything shifted. And again, as you can tell, the power of self-deprecating humor. When my daughter was in 6th, 7th grade, it's such an awkward time. And I remember she'd come home and some girls had been mean, and I would tell, I wanted to just go, you're going to be okay. I wanted to go to air. I wanted to go fix the problem and try to make it all go away, because that's my natural style. But, all she really needed for me to tell her was, what it was like when I was in, 4th and 5th grade, and I had to wear a retainer, and then like it's really funny headgear, and I would chew on my hair, and I wore funny glasses, and watching how she'd flow to my side, knowing that this is just part of life. And it's the sense of grounding into, in the grand scheme of things, what really matters. So we know this space, this magical space, a space that understands the long body of time, and that we are here a brief time, and we're all trying to figure it out. And in that, if we can hold that space, those who very much are in that watery space will come to us. So pass that along as well. So asking open-ended questions, practice of humility. And then when you're dealing with the folks that are fiery and in and excited, and they're like, you don't understand, we need the oil industry, it's the engine of our state, how can you want to get rid of mining? I live in Montana, we need the oil and gas industry, right? And why we're so pro fracking and anti-vaccine, and it's very passionate and very fiery. And so how can I let that other person know that I've heard them? Because that gets them out of, if you think of them like animals, when to a certain style, it's like the peacock, right? With the feathers just, and I'm letting you know how big I am. And I try to get bigger and bigger, is a way to let someone know who's in that space that you hear them, is to acknowledge in 3 ways. I need to let the person know I heard the content of what they're saying, so they know I'm gathering all of that, the emotion behind it. And I don't have to say, oh man, you're really passionate, but I can do it through my voice, and the impact. So silly example I love to use is if I came to all of you and I said, oh my gosh, I lost my job. And you said, oh, I must acknowledge content. And I would say, oh, Deidre, I hear you lost your job. I'd be like, blah, I'm going to make my peacock feathers even bigger. I'd be like, no, I lost my job. I'm going to get bigger and maybe even exaggerate even more. And you say, wow, you're upset. I'd be just like, blah. But if you were to say, oh, Deidre, you lost your job and you have a vacation plan with all of your children for your husband's 60th birthday, this is big. I'd be like, yeah, this is what I've been trying to tell you. So our job with acknowledgement, again, is don't feel like you have to agree with the person. As you can tell, not real big fan of the oil and gas industry in my state. But if I can assure them that I'm hearing what they're passionate about and why, they are maybe going to be a little more apt to listen to what I'm passionate about and why. It's almost as though you're bringing people in out from the fringes of fight flight and bringing them back into you. And again, if you can see it as a game, it can make all the difference. And this is what these extraordinary environmental activists like Tim DeChristopher and others are doing, where they're shifting the entire game. This is the tricks, and this is the work. And again, not easy, but passing this along. Then fourth, people who are trying to solve the problem, they really appreciate when you can give your own truth. I remember I was working with my son's 8th grade teacher, and she's very She's very quick. And this is the way we're going to do things. And this is what we're not going to do and everything else. And we were putting together an 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. And some of the kids were coming to me and they're saying, can we do it? Is it going to happen? And I said, I think it is. And the teacher got very mad because she wasn't ready to tell the students yet. So we had conflict. And thankfully had studied all this, but didn't really know at the moment. She's like, you're doing this wrong. And I can't believe you said that. And she's just super direct and in my face. And what I realized, it was beautiful because it was just a perfect example, that I needed to tell her, wow, what you just said offended me. I am a volunteer. I want to help and I'm sorry. Again, apology, one of the powerful forms of telling your truth. I'm so sorry that I made your life more difficult. So, and for those of us who have a more watery and gentle personality types, we might think, wow, that was really direct. Ugh. But when someone is using air and they're trying to solve a problem, which this dear teacher was, and she's a longtime friend, she needed me to provide to her my feedback, and in a way where I took personal responsibility. It came from a place of I. It was short, but it was direct. So, you know, she was able to then come back to me saying, I'm so sorry. I wasn't trying to offend you. I'm really concerned. I don't want these students to go, you know, and boom, boom, boom. And on we went. But it was, again, a style thing. So to watch, how can I provide that truth? How can I provide my truth in a way that helps people to be heard? Helps others to hear me, so then we can move forward. And then they are given the opportunity to be heard. So you notice that as I share this, it was a choop, 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 very quick and a wonderful affirmation of how direct, when I use the air style, I want things to be. So watching as well, what radio station are you naturally tuned to? Are you tuned to earth and slow and paying attention? Are you tuned to the water station where you come into a room and you go, ooh, there's something going on here and this hurts my tummy? Are you tuned to the, oh my gosh, we could do this, 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 and this, that fiery station, looking in dreams but getting overwhelmed? Or are you tuned to, they've given me a problem, I need to go and fix it? different speeds on these different styles. And they're really, if you've had a conflict with someone, even with a system as well, and that elemental personality type where you think, no matter what I say, and we're all speaking English, we're not hearing each other. You're probably tuned to a different station than they're tuned. So our work as everyday warriors, our work as climate change leaders and activists is to how to listen to the different stations, bring in all of that information, and notice what possible solutions might be present or available. I wanted to make sure you had time in small groups. I think we do. We're not a very big, I can stay here as well and just answer questions, but this is one of my favorite quotes, that there is in the worst of fortunes, the best chances of a happy change. So Euripides was not the first and has always been around. That quote's been around quite a while. This recognition that we need conflict desperately in order to do our work and to become better. So does anybody have any burning questions after I've gone through those different conflict tips and philosophy? I'm going to stop share so I can see everybody. I did want to. Any thoughts? We're not that big of a group. We can do dialogue.
Should do.
A lot. Yeah, Bob.
So I'm just, I'm curious about implementing these ideas. So I find myself to be kind of like you have referred to yourself a couple of times. If I'm in the middle of a conflictual situation, is coming at me verbally, not physically, pretty hard, and confronting me about, how can you say that? Why do you believe that? Why can't you see what's wrong with it? So what is there a particular thing that you have done? Now you've been practicing this for a long time. So I tend to do the same thing you mentioned about locking up and kind of freezing. And so how do I dislodge myself from that frozen state to, oh, right, ask questions? I'm going to go back to my notes here. How do I break that? Because that's a long-standing pattern of just clutching and not feeling I can respond to this aggression.
Yeah. We go to freeze, which is supernatural, right? It's a way to, our brains just are wired that way. So my trick is have something that I've said to myself so many times. So when something comes, I just have, and it doesn't always look pretty. I started studying all of this, quite honestly, 25 years ago, because I wanted to look good in conflict. I wanted to be like graceful and fancy, and I got to the end, and I actually wrote about this in the conclusion of The Way of Conflict, is I realized conflict is kind of like birth. As a mom, it's like, it's messy and there's, fluids that, I end up crying sometimes. And, it takes rounds, right? You think, oh, it's like, when am I ever going to actually give birth to this baby, right? So being kind to myself, that it isn't always like pretty. But what I try to do is to have these things that, like, the nose to knees. So, as I'm listening, it's just, it might be, is, can you tell me more about this? Or, what am I missing? Having those, just something that I can do to keep the conversation together enough so I can breathe and center and try to keep hearing what's being said, because our brains are meanwhile going, get out of this, this is really scary, right? So that's why I'm like, tell me more. What am I missing? How can I, if I can think, while someone's talking, it's just going, I'm going to learn something from this. This is an opportunity. This is a good moment. Having these little tricks that I've just said to myself so many times. Another trick, Bob, for me has been often, I find when I'm working with clients is that they'll say, oh, I'm terrible at conflict. And I'm like, ooh, well, that's not going to help you, right? Because you've already so it's like how to train your brain when it's not happening to go, every day I learn more about conflict. Every day I become more confident when conflict comes, so that you've moved your software along, is another trick. Because really, we're not only fighting with that other person, we're fighting with our brain at the exact same time. Yeah, great question. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Deirdre?
Yeah.
Deirdre, this might be a good time for you to share that story about the hospice leader and what he said, because I found that very empowering and something to keep thinking about.
Oh, good. So I was, again, I was writing this book and at school with Penny and I went to this, what I thought was a very fancy gathering. It was a dialogue out in Silicon Valley, right? Because we were all out in Oakland. So I got to go to this great meeting in Silicon Valley. And one of the people that was there was this, one of the founders of Zen Hospice. And we were doing this dialogue around, I think it was around the war in Afghanistan at the time, or in Iraq. And he was really disheartened. And he said, I think all conflict is lose-lose. And inside of me, and so this, the other thing is all these beliefs that we have, right? I was like, oh, no, he can't say that, because I'm writing all about win-win solutions and that, conflict is opportunity and all this positive stuff. And I was like, oh, how can he be saying that? And I just watched, everything in me wanted to go, you're wrong. I need to stop you from talking like this. And meanwhile, it was this very fancy meeting. And my mother was sitting next to me, which is great because she was part of this community. That's how I gotten to go. And she said, you should say something, which was even worse, right? And I just remember just kind of bumbling and fumbling, not knowing what to say. But I was like, oh, I just have a hard time with that. And, trying to share my own truth about win-win solutions. But I left with it feeling like, just disheartened and struggling. I mean, it just created this huge conflict in my mind around, is conflict, because here I am trying to teach about win-win, and he was this beautiful opponent that it appeared that said it's all lose-lose. And at this moment, as I worked it and as I, listened to it, it was absolutely true, because we always start with an initial position, right? Everybody in the United States needs to be vaccinated. And we've got the other side going, this is all a farce. This shouldn't happen, right? And we're like these fixed positions and we hold on to super tight. But to find the win-win solution, both of the initial positions have to be lost. So it was like a Zen koan. I was like, of course, he's Zen Hospice. He's doing a Zen koan for me. Is that all win-win solutions start with lose-lose? And so how do and sometimes we can only open our hands just a little bit. And that's okay, because we're also underneath are the things that we aren't going to want to let go of, right? So where am I going? This is the solution, the form. And then looking, what are the underlying intentions, the underlying essence of what I'm trying to create? And understand what's underlying this, don't mess with my freedom. I shouldn't have to get vaccinated, but to listen so that I can find out what's underneath this position, so I can find the win-win solution that incorporates the whole. But yes, it's such a story on me, Penny. It was really great. But it's just the beauty. But in that moment, I was just flummoxed. One of the things that I was raised on, and you all are of a certain age, so I think you can appreciate this. I was raised on Brady Bunch and Partridge Family and Love American Style, right? And all conflict is just you know, it's presented and then all gone within 25 minutes with, you know, with commercial breaks, right? So I think we think in our own minds that, or I don't know, at least I do or did, is that conflict, it has to be all done in that one round. And I have learned that just like, you know, like a boxing match, it can be multiple rounds, and how to be kind enough to myself to know it might take me some time to process this. And I might want to come back around, and that second round might not be easy either, but I might learn a little bit more. And I might need to go away and get recentered and then come back to my spouse or my significant other or my roommate, or, you know, and say, okay, I'm still struggling with this. And, you know, can we talk about this just a little bit longer? So that's another trick for me, Bob, is to recognize, oh, I'm just not wired to do this in 25 minutes with commercial breaks, you know, and sometimes it's going to be kind of clunky, and how to have some compassion, because I'm fighting against my brain at the same time that's going, run away, you know? Or take that person down. Yeah.
Good points.
Yeah. Oh, Penny, I love you about that story. Back up. It is a good story, but leave it to the Zen master to catch me completely. Not in I mean, this is a group of 50 people. No one had any idea that that's what I was studying. So it was just one of those, love the universe doing its beautiful work on us, that coyote energy that loves to get us. Yeah. Oh, other questions or thoughts or things that you're what's niggling you? Or other strategies that you might recommend that have helped you to stay in?
Well, I'm thinking about what Bob said, because that's my struggle, is that I react too fast without thinking or feeling. So I guess that's reptilian conflict resolution, which doesn't really exist. So what you said about becoming aware, like sometimes I can now say, this person is talking to me, this person is angry at me, these words are coming at me, I am intact. My skin is still on my bones, and my head is still on my neck, and I think I can stand here and not feel like I'm just going to fly away, like autumn leaves. So I think there's that, and I remember reading that someplace else about people with anger, because I knew somebody that had really raging anger, and the problem that they studied was, and I thought they went like this. What happened when you receive the information and the response is so fast that they are unable to shape it in any way or notice that they're responding, it just comes out. And I'm not that fast, but I know that it takes a work for me to become, so the self-awareness of being in conflict rather than just feeling like you're in a shooting gallery. That first, I think, to notice is a big deal. It's just to notice what's happening. And that takes that takes more wherewithal than we would think, I think.
Right. No, thank you, Gail. Yeah. And it's just, if nothing else, to be compassionate with ourselves, right? That our poor little brains are just trying to get us out of trouble. But that we do have this, like you're saying, I love it. You have a mantra. When I was writing Thriving Through Tough Times, I was looking at, what helps us with these conflicts with life. Really looking at the story of Job, and one of the big pieces that we find is perennial wisdom is having mantras that we're just saying to ourselves. I'm all right, all shall be well. I'm still intact. I'm breathing, notice how you're just counting your blessings as you're doing that. Getting you into your neocortex. Yeah. I'll come down to sometimes when it's really bad. It's like, I still have legs. I could walk out of here. I'm like, okay, that's something to be thankful for. I get to be here. I get to feel. That's about all I got. Like, I'll be thankful for something more here in a minute, but I got that. I'm still breathing. Yeah. Oh,
Deirdre, could you please tell us again about the raven, the story of the raven Your
raven. Yes, yes. So Angela Sarian would always talk, she was always working with us around fear, knowing how it's, you know, stops us in our tracks. And she would actually even she had the statue, small statue of a raven, and she would pass it to us and say, what goes on this raven's back? And it was actually to give voice to what you were afraid of. And I remember her doing that with me one time, you know, and I had these little children, and I just, such terror that something would happen to them. And I remember very quietly saying that something will happen to my people. And she's like, what did you say? You know, so that, you know, it's like, okay, yes, that's a story that doesn't need to happen. And the idea was that we would put it on the raven's back, because the legend goes, you know how ravens' feathers have almost a rainbow iridescence to them?
Yeah.
Is that they are set to take our fears and fly them up to the sun and have them burned away. Because we are at our best when we are, as Angeles would say, thank you for asking. We are best when we are in our long, tall bodies with our deep roots. In our long, tall bodies with our deep roots. Yeah.
Well, Deidre, thank you so much for spending this time with us and enlightening us. And of course, this will be put online. Bob does that, starting that system. And so we can share it more with both of us, particularly working on behalf of the environment, where we get in those awkward situations where you don't know what to say. The person's coming from such a different place and its value system that it's really hard to know how. And I think this will help some of us, me, move forward. So I thank you for your wisdom and for your dedication, you know, for your career and your gifts to spend them this way to help people deal with something we don't like to deal with, but need to. So I don't know if you have a closing that you wanted to offer. If not, I have an idea. So go ahead.
Oh, good. Okay. I had a quote that I was going to give just in terms of being kind around our fears. This is from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And said, he who is not every day conquering some fear has not yet learned the secret of life. I'm going to read it again.
Yeah.
He who is not every day conquering some fear has not learned the secret of life. Yeah, we're all in this together, and we're all, yeah. And thank you all for doing just that on behalf of all of us. We are blessed indeed that this is work and care that you are holding for all of us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for coming and spending this time with us, and go share these ideas with your friends and use them in your times of conflict and creativity. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Deidre.
Thank you.
Oh, I should stop the recording now.
Yes.
What?
Okay. Well, I had to chuckle when she noted that she grew up hopeless, because I grew up in a suburb